Pause recording. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar series, Celebrate Cybersecurity. Today, we're going to go over the NIST framework between 11 and 12, and then we're going to have an New Mexico Tech Cybersecurity Alumni panel from 1 to 2. I thank you for joining us today. Before we get started, I want to go over some webinar ground rules with everybody. If you have a question, please put it into the Q&A. It's either at the bottom or top of your screen. And just to make sure everybody is going, can you put a hi, hello, how are you into the Q&A for me, please? Hi, Chris. Hi, Molly. Thank you, guys. And then if at any time during the webinar something's going drastically wrong, maybe the slides aren't showing, maybe we've frozen, could you raise your hand for me? Perfect. So that's the signal. My name is Christopher Garcia. I'm going to be coordinating the webinar in the background. Let me make sure chat is on. So if you need to chat with me about something, you are able to. Attendees can chat with hosts and panelists. So that should be available for you. Panelists can chat with everybody. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to our host, Steffie Rawlings, with the New Mexico Small Business Development Center Technology Commercialization Accelerator at New Mexico Tech. Steffie.
Greetings and welcome to our second week of webinars as we celebrate Cybersecurity Awareness Month. My name is Steffie Rawlings, and I am the coordinator of the New Mexico Small Business Development Program called the Technology Commercialization Accelerator here at NMT. The TCA has collaborated with the New Mexico Cybersecurity Centers of Excellence, also here from NMT, to celebrate Cybersecurity Awareness Month. We will be providing webinars related to education, careers, industry, and community throughout the month of October. We have scheduled 2 webinars a week as we try to provide cybersecurity awareness to the residents of New Mexico. We are recording these presentations, and the recordings will be placed on the New Mexico Small Business Development Center YouTube channel. We will have a Q&A at the end of the presentation. So if you have any questions or comments, please use the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. This week, we will be presenting information on careers in cybersecurity. This morning, we will be providing a webinar on the National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education Cybersecurity Workforce Framework. This afternoon, we will have Dr. Lorie Liebrock lead a panel of New Mexico Tech alumni that are currently working in cybersecurity. A little background about the TCA. The center is part of the New Mexico Small Business Development Center and has been in operation for 2.5 years. We provide no-cost confidential counseling to the residents of New Mexico regarding intellectual property, which includes patents, trademarks, copyrights, and trade secrets. We are also tasked to provide cybersecurity awareness to innovators, entrepreneurs, small businesses, and all residents of New Mexico. Like I said, we have partnered with the New Mexico Cybersecurity Centers of Excellence to provide these webinars as we look to provide cybersecurity awareness. The New Mexico Small Business Development Center provides free trainings and webinars to all New Mexico residents as we try to help educate and inform residents about building sustainable businesses to promote the economy of New Mexico. We welcome you and are glad you are here to help us celebrate and hopefully to learn more about cybersecurity. I would like to thank all the panelists and speakers that will be presenting during the event. Thank you. Next, I would like to introduce Karen Wetzel, who is the manager of the NIST framework at the National Institute of Standards and Technology. I will allow Karen to introduce herself and provide any background information that she would like to share. We are happy, Karen, that you have made time to be with us today. And with that, Karen.
Thank you so much, Steffi, and thank you so much for inviting me here today. Happy Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and we're thrilled that Cybersecurity Career Awareness Week kicks off next week. So this is great timing for us to be able to share with you about what we do here at NIST and a little bit about the NIST framework. As I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Give me 1 second while I get that ready. And there we go. So my title is Manager of the NIST Framework here at NIST. NIST is the National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education. And as Steffi said, we are part of the National Institute for Standards and Technology, or NIST, which is under the Department of Commerce. What I'll be talking about today is really focused on the NIST workforce framework for cybersecurity, which is, although we do a lot here at NIST, including outreach to K-12, to higher ed, we work with private and public industry, we do events, leadership planning, there's all sorts of things that we do, and there's certainly a lot of information on our site about that. But I'm going to focus on the NIST framework, which is really where a lot of people know us from and is a useful tool that can help you as you are looking at your workforce planning and development. Starting with, of course, what you probably already know, earlier this year, cyberseek.org released updated information about what is happening in cybersecurity hiring, and there's an articles out there, cybersecurity hiring momentum ramps up. They were looking at the time period from May 21 through April 2022. And during that time, there were over 700,000 cybersecurity job openings. And what's really interesting about that is that almost 40% of those job list postings were listed in the first 4 months of 2022. So what we're looking at is not only a large number of openings, this is an increase over what we saw last year, but looking as well at an even greater increase in more recently. So we're seeing a big demand. And this is also reflected in the fact that the demand for cybersecurity jobs increased by 43% over the last year's number. And that's whereas we're seeing more of an increase in 18% across the entire employment market, to see 43% jump in cybersecurity hiring is really significant. Out of that, what they saw as well was over 1 million people employed in cybersecurity work in that time. But what's interesting is that they also have a supply-demand ratio of 66%. What that means is for every 100 jobs in cybersecurity, there are 66 people to fill those jobs. So this is an issue. This is an issue where we need to understand that there's a lot of demand, and yet there's not a lot of people there. So we are going to need to start thinking about different ways of increasing participation in cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is an organization-wide kind of responsibility. Someone who might have responsibility in cybersecurity, but not necessarily think of themselves as a cybersecurity worker. So someone who might be doing policy, for instance, but needs to have cybersecurity as part of their aspect of what they do. And so it's looking at it broadly, looking at how do we bring more people into this field, and how do we make sure that we are going to be importantly reflecting what is needed for our organizations. But there's some demand too. One thing to note is that the biggest ramps and the biggest hiring in cybersecurity in this time period, we were seeing in finance. We're looking at it in terms of insurance, looking at it in manufacturing, as well as in real estate. So what had primarily been a field where it was more in the traditional technology spaces, we're seeing now branch out into different types of industries and sectors. And so there's going to be demand for these hires as well. The White House is aware of this. Obviously, it's an important part of what we do in the federal government too, but it's an important part for our nation. And there was a summit in July of 2022 focused on cyber workforce and education. And you could see that they were looking at not only the workforce, building those skills-based pathways into cybersecurity jobs, but looking at how do we educate Americans so that there's those skills in both in employment, but also just in working in an increasingly digital society. And of course, improving the diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility in this field. Out of this summit in July, they did make a few announcements, including a forthcoming national cyber workforce and education strategy, efforts to prepare K-12 students. That includes what NICE is doing. We have a K-12 conference at the end of the year, and we'll be working on an FAQ around the NICE framework for K-12. It's a useful way for people to understand about the kinds of work in this space. And there was also a launch of a 120-day cybersecurity apprenticeship sprint at that summit. To let you know a little bit more about NICE before I jump more into the framework specifically, you could see our strategic plan and the kinds of areas that we're looking to develop and to work. It's around promoting diversity and making sure there are multiple pathways into this field. It's looking at transforming learning so that we have that diverse and skilled workforce, modernizing talent management processes, expanding use of the NICE framework. That's my bread and butter there. But also looking at driving research for effective practices. So there's more information on our site about these and what we're doing around these areas. And there's a link there, and these will be available to you after the event. So that really comes to where the NICE Workforce Framework for Cybersecurity comes in. It's a really important tool because it establishes a common language. It makes it so that information about cybersecurity work can be clearly shared. Excuse me. That includes from, like I mentioned, from K-12, getting people to be aware of what cybersecurity is. The small businesses understanding about types of work, as well as large businesses, looking about when you're promoting jobs, that there's that language and the people know what the job is going to be because you're using that common language. And it will be language that's familiar to them from their education, whether it's through a traditional 2-year or 4-year path, if it's through certifications, or if it's through other on-the-jobs experience. Being able to have that language to translate can be really useful. What it does is it describes what a workforce needs to know. It helps then with organizations establishing processes, and it can be used in a number of different ways. And I have some examples here, and I'll go into more of that as I go forward. So what it really is kind of 2 pieces. One is the framework document, which gives the structure of what the framework is, and then the spreadsheet, which is the data that supports that structure. So the structure really at its base is these building blocks. They are the foundation of the NICE framework. These are statements that are of 3 kinds. The task statements, which describe the work that someone needs to do, and then the skill and knowledge statements, which really is more about the learner, what someone needs to know or be able to do in order to complete that work. And then those are laid out in these different kinds of ways, primarily through work roles. We also introduced in our latest revision competency areas, and then people can use them as they develop their teams. So when we're looking at then what the framework is overall, we're looking at 7 categories of work roles. We have 52 different kinds of work roles. There's a lot of different kinds of work in cybersecurity, and we want to be able to reflect that in these different work roles. We have some draft competency areas. Those are still in development, with over 1,000 task statements, over 600 knowledge statements, and then around 400 skill statements. So there's a lot to it, but hopefully it won't be too difficult to understand how you can actually start to use it. And I'm going to show a little bit about what it consists of first, before we sort of explain how then you might apply that. Really, it's a lot of, like I said, most people sort of focus in on it from a work role perspective. We have 7 different categories of work roles, and you can see the numbers there describe how many work roles are in each category. Oversee and govern has the most. And these are work roles like the cybersecurity leadership. It might be someone who's an authorizing official at your organization. It might be someone who is in charge of developing awareness trainings. And so there's a lot of kinds of governance kinds of things. It might be the policy developer. We then have securely provision, which is fairly clearly what that states. People who operate and maintain cybersecurity areas, protect and defend, and then investigate. The latter 2, the analyze and collect and operate, are more specific to federal government and different kinds of roles there. But I should clarify that work roles are not the same thing as job titles or positions. Work roles really are groupings of tasks for which someone or a team is responsible in a certain area of work. So I might be working in cybersecurity, that's my occupation, and I might have a job. My title might be something like cybersecurity analyst, but my work role, I might be in that job responsible for multiple work roles. I might be responsible for the network. I might be responsible for systems. I might be responsible for some running the program or awareness. So there are different kinds of work that job might be comprised of, and you can see that the work roles really are focused in on those tasks. And then I mentioned we have competency areas, and that's really more about the person and what they're bringing to those tasks. So to give you some examples of what work roles look like, I just pulled 3 randomly. We have, like I said, 52, but the 3 are data analyst. And you can see that when you look at our content and the framework itself, there's a short description of what someone who has that role might do. And then it points to 23 different tasks for which that person or team might be responsible. In this case, it then is supplemented by 63 knowledge, skills, and abilities. The abilities are being refactored as knowledge and skills as we speak. That then someone in that space should bring to that in order to be effective at that job. When it comes to information system security manager, the number of tasks there is more than double. So we see there are 53 tasks for someone in that kind of position. It covers a broad range of different kinds of work that someone in that space, in that kind of role might do, or someone who has that role might do. But it's ironically 59 knowledge, skill, and ability statements. So it may be less specific kinds of knowledge and skills that someone might need to bring to the table. And then we have network operations specialist here, and that's again very narrow, and we have 11 tasks with that, but again 58 knowledge, skill, and ability statements. So it really is looking at the whole thing, the framework as a whole, to get a sense of what kinds of categories of work are there, what kinds of roles are there, but then getting down into it, you can start diving into more detail about, well, what specifically does that person need to be able to do, and how will they do that? I give just a handful of example tasks here for that information system security manager work role. And you can see it can range from, in this case, task 157 is overseeing the security training and awareness program. Or they could be about providing technical documents, findings, and other things to higher ups. So it's being that responsible person and making sure that that kind of information is shared across the organization. It could be about understanding when there are security violations and taking action and reporting incidents. It's looking at resource allocations. So making sure that the budgets and the staffing is there to be able to maintain the organization's cybersecurity requirements. And it could be about overseeing standards and implementing those as well, and making sure there are processes in place in order to support those. So that just gives an example of the types of work someone in that space might do. And then you would look at those knowledge and skill statements to find out more about, well, what does someone need to know in order to make sure that they're effective at those tasks? There are a number of ways that the framework can be accessed. I'm going to sort of intersperse periodically with some examples. And going back to CyberSeek, they use the NIST framework in some of what they do. They look at job listings that are out there. And here's a job listing for cybersecurity analyst. And you can see that it does tie into the framework categories. If you were to scroll down, you could see tasks that they pull out for someone in this position might do. You can look at the average salary across the nation for people who are looking at this type of job, and the different kinds of titles that might fit in here. How many openings there are for someone in that space now. There's a lot of useful information. And on the left-hand side, you could see too that they have pathways, and it helps you understand, well, who might be in this role? Is it someone who's coming straight into cybersecurity from not having any experience at all? Maybe they start off as a specialist and they maybe go into an analyst role. Or as that person's in that role, maybe there are other things that they would like to do with their career, and where might they go next? And so it gives some example pathways for that. Switching to what competency areas are then, it is really about looking at the evolving recruiting practices as we are shifting from only relying on a job application and looking at just that degree and saying, oh, do they have a computer science major? It's recognizing that people are going to come in from this field from a lot of different spaces. Sometimes it is in that direct kind of route. A lot of times, though, it's not. It could be a lateral move. It could be someone who's currently in your organization who has expressed interest in cybersecurity, and you want to see how they could maybe shift into a cybersecurity kind of role. It's a way to really broaden one's applicant pool. It's to look at different kinds of qualifications and being able to consider those as you're hiring or as you're developing your employees. It's looking at emerging technologies, and you're not always going to have degrees or certifications on some of those emerging spaces. And so if you're looking at bringing in more expertise around AI cybersecurity, that might not be something that you're going to see in a traditional career. So you're going to look for different kinds of ways to bring them in. It's focusing on more of assessment-based hiring and promotion. It's thinking about where you're going with an organization, and it's really about how to align those education and training needs to your organizational goals. However, I want to point out another reason why we're bringing in a competency area kind of perspective is also sort of going back to the cybersecurity, because of the demand. I mentioned at the beginning, this big demand in all sorts of different sectors when it comes to cybersecurity. And we don't have all the people to fill them yet. But how do we then bring those people in? How do we start looking more interesting? Now I'm based out of Virginia. And so I'm showing you from CyberSeek what Virginia, you can look at your individual state. We can look at New Mexico and see what's it look like. What's the cybersecurity professional sort of demand in New Mexico? Who's hiring for what? But I chose Virginia, and you can see that there are 56,000 openings, 96,000 people employed currently. We're a little bit better than national average when it comes to that supply-demand ratio. For every 100 jobs, there's 68 people versus 66 to be able to fill those. And you can see some of the common job security titles that are opening in Virginia. If we were to scroll down on that page, we'd be able to see a little bit more detail. You could see for those jobs that are opening, where are most of them? And most of them in Virginia are coming out of that operate and maintain category. So the support, administration, maintenance for system performance and security. So I'm not too surprised about that though. But if you look over at these on the right-hand side, it also says about certification holders. Now, in this case, we know that in Virginia, let's say that there are, looking at the CISSP, there are 11,000 people who have that. But if we are to look at then how many people how many jobs are asking for that certification, there are 12,000. So only 11,000 people in Virginia have that. And yet there are 12,000 people openings that are requesting that. So that becomes an issue. So and especially if we look at with CISSP, that's 5 years of experience right there. Now, do we always need to have someone with 5 years experience straight out the gate? Is that going to be something that's required? So there is something, as we're looking at competency areas, maybe thinking about alternatives, thinking about maybe we can bring this person in now and build up those years of experience to get them to CISSP. Maybe I could bring someone in now and be able to figure out, well, what is needed and help them with the support, maybe financial support or time support in order to get that certification, if that's something that's important for your organization. So looking at the competency area kind of perspective, it's about bringing people in the door and sort of being able to meet current needs and build them up if needed. And it really is a way for us to be able to bring, again, those stakeholders. It's about those employers who are helping us to identify the different areas, competency areas, the educators who are teaching those. We help define them, but it's really up then to the learners to possess, acquire, develop, and demonstrate them. The way that we explain that competency areas can be looked at is there are things that could be overlaid onto a work role. There might be a position that is responsible for more than work roles and need to have additional competency, like in cloud security. So we're going to be building out a competency area in that space that might be something that would be added on to maybe your systems folk. There could be that there's a need for that common language, that common ground. So if you need to be in a sector specific area, if you're talking to people who are not necessarily in cybersecurity, but in that space, if you're developing AI, you might need to have they might need to understand AI cybersecurity as well as your cybersecurity staff needing that to be able to have that shared common ground. That could be done in telecom or manufacturing, in all sorts of different spaces there. And really, it can be used in learning. So identifying where people want to study, how they can develop themselves, and particularly in some emerging areas. Maybe it's about growing themselves in a certain area as well. And here are just a few examples of the kinds of things that we're looking to put out in our next list of competency areas that we're aiming to build out at the end of this year. And so it could be things like from access controls, so specialized in that sort of area, being able to understand who's authorized to access protected data and resources, to things like cloud security or OT cybersecurity. So those cyber physical systems, maybe in manufacturing that we see, or, around buildings, and security there. And things like supply chain cybersecurity, which of course is a big deal at this point. So that's the structure. That's sort of what the NIST framework looks like as a whole, but the using it, that's where we're going to turn to now. Is okay, so you get an idea of what it's made of, but what does that mean? How could you actually have it help you? And there are a number of ways that the NIST framework can then be used to help. You could use the framework and the work roles or the competency areas and that common language to develop out job descriptions, so that the person that you're looking to hire is clear about what the work is that you're planning to do. It could be at a high level. It could be just at that sort of work role description level, or it could be looking at the tasks in that and finding out which things it would be, and in reflecting that language in your job description. And it's also then looking at those requirements and understanding what specifically are you going to need to have these people, and how are you then going to assess candidates based on those. So if you are going to say, I want this person to be able to complete these tasks, how are you going to determine that during the hiring process? So looking at those knowledge and skills that we have that support those, being able to see, does that candidate have those, and how can they maybe how can some of their existing skills maybe translate into specific cyber needs. It could be used to assess your current cybersecurity workforce. It's really important to understand who you have now, who's doing what, who's responsible for what, so that things don't get overlooked, and having the framework be a tool that can then help you make those connections, figure out who is responsible for what in what areas and what work roles can be really helpful in making sure that you aren't leaving your organization at risk. And it's also about preparing for future needs, sort of anticipating what might be coming forward and being able to make sure that you have the staff that you're going to need in order to support yourself going in that direction. So to play that out, I have here some examples of how that might look like. So we have here now a cybersecurity manager, let's say, and your organization has a new strategic plan and has decided that there are going to be some, there are going to be some unique cybersecurity requirements with that strategic plan, making sure to support that organization. And the manager is asking now, do we have the right people on our team in order to do that? Are we fully staffed for that? Are we going to be able to support this new direction that we're going in? Well, one thing that this person could do is do that workforce assessment using a NIST framework. So figuring out hopefully you already have some sense of who you already have on your team. You know what roles they have, they know what they're responsible for, and you'll be able to see, are there any work roles still needed? Are there any competency areas that need to be developed? So are you going to be developing out more of your cloud cybersecurity, and you need to bring in that expertise? Is that something that's needed? And figuring out, are there gaps? Are you going to provide training for that or hire? Who knows? This is where looking at what you have, where you're going can really help. And in this case, good news, there's because of the importance of this new strategic plan, this organization decides we're going to go ahead and hire someone to fill the needs for our team. So in this case, then it goes to the HR, and the HR person is working with the cybersecurity manager. They need to understand how they can be sure to hire the right candidate. And this is where the framework can really be helpful in identifying those work roles and competencies that person will be responsible for. You don't want to go ahead and say, look, you're going to be responsible for this work role if somebody else is doing that, without understanding how those people might work together. How are these jobs going to overlap? You could use that language. I'm sorry, it must be on autoplay. You could use that language from the framework in your job description so that people understand what it is that you're looking for, and then you can assess candidates for those needed knowledge and skills as you're going through that way too. I have here, and you'll be able to see this in the slides when you receive those afterwards. I have here some questions to consider as you're getting ready to hire that this person in HR might be thinking about. So like, what roles will the position be responsible for? And as you're going through it, you could, the NICE framework can be flexible. You don't have to, at your organization, say every single task on this work role is going to be what this person is going to need to do or be responsible for. It may be that at your organization, a portion of the tasks is what your organization requires. So you're going to want to go through and say, these are the ones that are going to fit for us. Maybe there are some that your organization needs that aren't there. And so you're going to want to make sure that those missing ones are sort of identified for your needs too. Understanding who's going to be doing it. Are some going to be shared across a team, for instance? Are any of the tasks that we have maybe need to be adjusted to meet your specific needs? So taking the time to look through that and figure that out as you're looking to hire. And it might be that some things are needed on the first day, in which case you're going to make those requirements and have things that are going to be specified in the announcement around what is required. But there are also going to be some things that maybe can be learned on the job. Maybe you'll be able to figure out how to offer apprenticeships, for instance, and be able to bring people up into speed. There's that saying of being able to hire the skills and be able to teach the technology. Is that going to be important for your organization? And then looking at then, what kinds of requirements are going to be needed. Do you really need to have degrees in order to do this role? Are there specific certifications you really want to make sure that person has? And if so, what implications will that be for your candidate pool? Is there work experience that you would want to make sure is seen there? And what kinds of things are going to look there? Is that going to look like? So those are the kinds of questions that the HR manager is going to want to think about. And then, of course, how will those be assessed? Maybe there's additional support that you're going to provide to candidates who meet some minimum level of qualifications and might need additional development. And, you're going to work on those job descriptions, hopefully using the NICE framework work roles and task knowledge and skill statements, and figuring out how to maybe use some tools that use the NICE framework and that maybe map the work roles to common job titles, like I showed you on the CyberSeek page before, and figure out, what title might we want to put this out as so that people can recognize what this job is. Is our compensation in line with what is our competitors are putting out there? And if not, how can we maybe adjust that? So those are the things that you'll be able to see, and how tools that use NICE framework can help support you as you're getting ready to hire. But also, at the same time, in the same organization, there's someone who might be on staff already. So in this case, this person's looking to shift to a new cybersecurity role in their own organization, but they want to make sure they're prepared. It could be that they're not in cybersecurity at all right now and want to make that lateral kind of move. It could be that it's someone who's maybe more junior and wants to advance in their career or shift from one type of cybersecurity area of work into another. In this case, this person can use the NICE framework to upskill and to reskill, to take a look at the different kinds of paths that they might be interested in, using some of those career pathway tools that exist out there using the NICE framework, and to figure out, well, where would they want to go? What kinds of skills do they currently have that might translate over? And maybe they have some skills that are in one area that are in another work role space too, and then that would be a nice transition. That's something that they could see with the NICE framework. They are able to then use the NICE framework language to be able to say, look, I'm meeting my organizational needs, and be able to use that common language to sort of reflect back what those are, and be able to share out with you all how they can translate that, how those skills can be shifted over. And it's also where, if there are areas of weakness, that they can sort of focus on those areas that need work. So when we're thinking about finding the right candidate, again, this might be someone for a new position. It might be for as you're adjusting your cybersecurity needs. It's really looking at this from a broad level. It's sort of shifting from maybe that entry level only perspective to maybe more career entry. So people who are shifting into cybersecurity after already having a career in a sort of different field, but have those translatable skills. So it's recognizing how important knowledge of the business might be. So you're going to maybe want to hire someone if you're in a hospitality industry, if you're going to want to have someone with that background, with that knowledge. And that's really important to be able to have them be able to hit the ground running when they're moved into the cybersecurity role in your organization. So understanding that broad variety of kinds of skills that maybe need to come to the kind of role, including adjacent and professional skills like communication, like teamwork and things like that, and how that might translate into your job requirements. Looking at non-traditional entry points, really helping to develop a culture of learning so that, not only necessarily only requiring people to come in ready-made, but maybe having a little bit of gap time so they could be able to build up that learning on the job. It's about looking at how do you remove bias and barriers into the field as well. So I had a great conversation with someone once who was talking about how they had seen a job position that was saying that they needed 5 years of experience with a particular tool. The tool only existed for 3 years. And so understanding, is obviously that's going to be a barrier. What kinds of things can be done? What are the realistic expectations that can help you then broaden that pipeline and improve DEIA, that diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. And then, it's also looking around, who else is in this room with you right now, looking around and seeing who can you maybe partner with in the community. Are there different kinds of people who can help bring in the talent that you need or help develop your own existing talent? And in order to be able to build out those career pathways, and in doing so is going to make sure that you have improved retention. You're going to have people on site who can support your needs and, again, minimize your organizational risk. So I know that I wanted to make sure that you all had a sense of the different kinds of ways that people are using the NIST framework. So I have a nice long list here. This is more for you to think about as you're going forward. But it includes these are all examples of things of organizations have come to us and said, this is what we're doing right now with the NIST framework. This is not pie in the sky or theoretical. This is exactly what's happening in businesses right now, small and large, of how they're using the NIST framework. That we have some federal uses here, but I think the industry uses are probably going to be more pertinent for your needs. So what we're seeing are things like matching mentees and mentors according to NIST framework areas of interest. So people who are maybe more senior in your organization who can work with people who are just joining your organization to help them and understand cybersecurity. It could be about looking at those gaps and making sure that you're building up your workforce and being able to understand what kinds of requirements you're going to have. I imagine that a lot of you may not want to. I mean, we have 52 work roles. We do not expect that every organization is going to have each of those work roles represented. So it's a matter of looking through and saying, where do we need to focus? What is important for our goals, for our business needs, for us to be supported in this space, and being able to figure out, okay, we're going to need maybe someone who could do some of these things from this work role and some from this work role, and let's figure out what kind of job would that look like. So these are some examples of exactly how people are using it now and how the NIST framework can potentially help you in the future. But I want to point out, I've mentioned a few times that there are tools out there, and I wanted to just highlight a few of them that will help you and as you go through this process. There is, for instance, on the National Initiative for Cybersecurity Careers and Studies page through the Department of Homeland Security, an access point to the NIST framework. Although we make the framework content available as a spreadsheet, that can be a little bit difficult to manage sometimes. So what we have here is just an easier way of accessing it. It has the different categories that our work roles are organized into, and then you could go ahead and do searches across to, you could do a keyword search in the work roles or keyword search in the task for the types of things that you think that you might need for your organization. We also, I've mentioned CyberSeek a few times, so that it does include both that interactive map, looking at what's happening either nationwide or at an individual state level, but also gives those career pathways. You can look at the different kinds of jobs that they highlight and see how they have a pathway, and then clicking on those sort of ties those to the work roles that we have in the NIST framework. There is also another pathways tool, and again, this is also through the NICS and Department of Homeland Security, a cyber career pathways tool. And here you can see if you click on any one of those circles at the bottom, it will highlight a specific NIST framework work role. It will tell you all about it. It will give you different types of job titles in the space, as well as connections about how that work role works with other types of work roles and sort of pathways there. And it gives lots of other good information as well. And then there are things like Millgears, which is an example of how other organizations are using the NIST framework as they're developing things. And another example like that is the NIST Challenge Project, which is available to .edu organizations to be able to do hands-on challenges and test themselves against tasks in the NIST framework. So that if you are looking to have hiring someone and coming in with different kinds of capabilities, they may have done some of the NIST challenges. They may be able to share with you about how they have done that and how they have completed tasks through something like the NIST Challenge Project. And that might be something that you may be able to partner with with an institution nearby and be able to have some of their candidates go through these and bring them into your organization. I don't expect you to get that all written down though right now. So on this page, if you go to our site, we are just nist.gov/NICE. And then if you do /framework, that gets you to the NICE Framework Resource Center, where you will see our current version of the document and all of our supporting documents. That includes a number of updates that we're making to all of our statements, as well as putting out information around proficiencies and things like that too. So there's lots of information there, but probably more importantly, there's lots of examples of different tools and applications, including some of the ones I just shared with you, be able to click over through to those. We also have resources by audience. We have some example success stories, so how other people have used the NICE framework, so you can learn how you might use it. Interviews with people who are in cybersecurity, so who are able to share about their own job, the kinds of work that they do, what that looks like, and how they got into their position. And importantly, we have a users group too. So if you have questions about how to use it or how others have, you can sign up there and ask the community what they've done, and they'll be able to share back with you about their own experiences. And so I'm going to go ahead and leave it there. I do want to point out that we do have some upcoming events. Of course, like I said, next week is Cybersecurity Career Awareness Week. We have tons of resources on our site, so I encourage you to go ahead and take a look there and see what kinds of information might be useful for you as you're going and sharing about different career awareness in your own organization. We do have a K-12 conference at the end of the year for those of you who might be looking at educators and how they're bringing what educators are doing to bring people into this field. And then I encourage you all to save the date for our annual NICE conference and expo, which will take place in June of next year. We also have monthly webinars, we have quarterly e-newsletter, and we have a very active online community for people who are interested in any of the work we do, especially around some of those strategic plans. So for instance, we're currently developing a guide on how to write job descriptions using the NICE framework. And that's going to be a guide for employers, and that's going to be being developed out of our Modernizing Talent Management Working Group. It's just starting now, so if you're interested, if you have some ideas on how that could be improved or some questions that you would like to make sure are answered as part of that, I encourage you to go ahead and take a look at our NICE community and get engaged and provide us with that feedback. Or you can always send me an email directly, and all that information's there as well. I wanted to make sure that there was some time for questions, so I'll go ahead and close out my slides and see if I can't take a look at that Q&A.
Perfect. I have a question from Ronald. What is the current acceptance level in industry of the NICE framework? What is the acceptance level based upon?
Oh my goodness, we get that question all the time, and also, from Congress, like, how do we know that we're having an impact? And that is difficult for us to measure. We can look and see how people are downloading the framework, how they're utilizing it, but in terms of actual uses, it can be difficult because a lot of companies who are using it are not always going to want to share about those uses. They're keep things close. What we've seen though in the last handful of years is that this is getting to be much higher level of use. I mentioned how much cybersecurity hiring there is now, how important that is for organizations, and there's a need for having a tool and having that language to be able to support that. And so as those numbers have gone up, we have been seeing that the numbers of uses of the NICE framework have gone up as well. People relying on it in order to figure out who they want to hire, relying on it to understand how to assess candidates, relying on it as people are starting to shift into their career and want to be able to advance in their career. So we are able to sort of see that from through our community, what people are sharing with us back. But in terms of hard numbers and be able to assess that, it's not easy to do. We are a national framework, but we're also used internationally. One thing that we're also seeing is a number of international frameworks that are using the NICE framework as a model and developing their own. So for instance, in Europe, there's a new framework that was modeled after the NICE framework approach. And that includes using language like work role and knowledge and task and skill statements. So that we're all, again, using those same kinds of measures of what someone might need to do, of what kind of work there is. And so that's another advance that we're seeing in this space. So it's not the hard number I think that you're probably looking for, but we are definitely seeing an uptick in its use. And as you saw with the White House event, there's a lot of emphasis on the cybersecurity in order to protect our businesses, in order to protect individuals' financial information, in order to protect, ourselves as a nation. And so with that emphasis, we're seeing, again, people coming to the NICE framework more and more.
Perfect, thank you. I see Margie has her hand up, so I'm going to allow her to speak, and I'll open it up for everybody else. If you'd like to speak, please raise your hand. So Margie, you're able to speak. You're on mute. Take yourself off mute and ask away.
Can you hear me?
Yes, hi, Margie.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Okay. You said you're on YouTube?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch that.
Did you say you're on some of your classes on YouTube?
I believe Steffi was saying that because this is going to be recorded, this will be available on YouTube. But I think what you're asking for is some additional content. And luckily, I have a new staff person. Her first day was today. And what we're going to be building this next year is a lot of resources. That includes developing a guide on using the NICE framework for small businesses, a NICE framework 101, and those kinds of things. If you go to our NICE framework resource center too, you'll see that there are links to some additional tools, one of which actually points to different training and education resources and how that are mapped to the NICE framework, because that is something that we do see. So that's another resource that's available to you. And again, that's linked from the NICE framework resource center too. But we are in the middle of developing.
Slowly, so I can write it. The NICE what?
It's the one that's on the screen in front of you, just the NIST.gov/NICE, and then if you and then /framework, and that will get you to our resource center, which is essentially just a lot of resources around the NICE framework. But you can always
framework, and then you go to where? Resource center?
Yep, and you'll have access to these slides afterwards, so you'll have the link from the slides, so you don't have to worry about writing it down now. We'll make sure to get these slides to you, so you'll get those links directly.
Well, I'm not working from a computer. My system's down.
Tell you what, I'm going to tell you my email address. So why don't you send me a note, Margie? My email address is Karen, Karen, .Wetzel, and that's spelled WETZEL, and that's at NIST.gov. Send me a link and I'll make sure you get the resources you need, or we can have a chat.
Okay. I had another question. You're talking about hiring somebody to help your business. How about sometimes there's an agency that say they help small businesses?
It's useful for them too. And so what I would suggest in that case is for you to first get a sense of who is it that you're looking for? You know, what kinds of work roles, look at the tasks there and figure out what is going to be specific for the job that you're looking to hire for, and be able to share that then with that agency and say, look, this is what we're looking for. And you know, some of those questions that I had earlier on the slide, I'll just sort of scroll back to it if I can. You know, some of these kinds of questions here are, you know, really thinking through, are you going to require a certain type of degree for the hire? And you know, what kinds of years of experience are really important? What kinds of support are you going to provide maybe when that person comes on? or what do they maybe need to have on day one? If you start to think about those kinds of things and be able to share that knowledge out with those other agencies and say, look, we're looking at using this nice framework language, then there's going to be that consistency of language so that the person coming to the job, they'll maybe know and be familiar with from their coursework, perhaps some of the same types of tasks. You're using that same language so that they're able to speak to and be able to really evidence their capabilities in that space because they're familiar with that language too. But I would recommend definitely using the framework as a starting place to get you thinking about what really are your needs. It might be that you are working with someone who needs to develop, to make sure your systems are secure. And so you might want to look then at the systems kinds of roles that we have and figure out the tasks there. It may be that you're looking more at having someone who manages your cybersecurity program as a whole. And so there's a program manager work role, and you might want to look at some of the things there. But if you use that same kind of language and the framework as a starting place, it will help you have that conversation with that agency so that they're more able to really hire based on what your actual needs are.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh. I know it's a lot of information here, which is why I put a lot here for us to come back to, for you to be able to look at further. But anytime, if there are questions or anything else I could do, absolutely reach out to us and we're happy to help.
Wow, Karen, that was a great presentation on the NIST framework. That's a lot of information. And this is the tip of the iceberg, but I think it is getting us started on the NIST framework.
It's all about finding a starting place. I think that's one of the important things. It's really starting to understand the need to secure your business, the need to do that for yourself as a business, as well as for your the customers, and being able to figure out a starting place on how to do that. And that's where we can help, is being able to get you thinking about these things and how does that translate into your organizational needs.
Yes, and also with the pathways and for people that are interested in going into cybersecurity.
Absolutely.
Yes, I think so.
We find that when people think of, there's that idea that when people think of cybersecurity, there's usually one kind of, the hacker role, or there's one thing that you think of from TV and movies, but then you realize that really there are a substantial different number of different kinds of work that might happen in this space. So if someone is really into coding, there's going to be a work role that's maybe geared more towards that versus someone who's maybe into looking at how to manage things more, or someone who's looking at being able to translate that out to someone who's maybe working with cyber physical systems. So there are different kinds of roles there, and they're all going to have some unique knowledge and skills, and certainly some unique tasks for those. So being able to understand, where might I want to go? What are my current skills and capabilities, and how can I use those to also move myself forward too?
Yes. So do we have any more questions from the audience?
I'll open it up for people to raise their hand to ask a question. You could put your question in the Q&A or in the chat.
We have one person raising their hand.
It's Carolyn from Roswell. Carolyn, you're able to speak. You're on mute.
Good morning. I had on my calendar that this ran till 1. Was there a second one after this? Either that or I put it on my calendar incorrectly.
We will have another presentation at 1 o'clock, and it will be New Mexico Tech alumni or NMT alumni that are working in cybersecurity. Dr. Lorie Liebrock will be hosting that panel. And so we will be able to talk to some of the people working in cybersecurity.
Okay.
Coming out of New Mexico Tech.
This was awesome. I know I looked at a lot of the cybersecurity information at our conference. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Carolyn. Thank you for attending. And again, we will We have recorded this presentation. We will put it up on our YouTube channel, the New Mexico Small Business Development Center YouTube channel. And then also you will receive, as for attending, you will receive a copy of the presentation put on by Karen Wetzel.
Well, I really appreciate you bringing me here today. I'm so glad to be part of your Cybersecurity Awareness Month and all of its activities as well. And I'm sure your panel is going to be amazing. And it's always fun to hear about how people have entered into the profession and the kinds of things that they are doing as well. It's a broad variety of work that's out there.
And also we have as a panelist, Lisa Ackley, who works with the New Mexico Cybersecurity Centers of Excellence, and Jessica Trujillo Torres, also working for New Mexico Cybersecurity of Excellence here at New Mexico Tech. So
Thank you. Thank you.
thank you guys.
We have a question in the Q&A from Ronald. How big is your organization, and are your offices centralized, or are they geographically distributed offices?
So NICE is the National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education. No, we're tiny. We're very tiny, but we work with NIST, which is much larger, and NIST is part of the Department of Commerce. So we are tiny ourselves, but we work with all sorts of different state, local, tribal kinds of governments. We work with making sure that they're with academia and with different training providers. And so we do provide a lot of resources that way. So we don't have a geographically distributed office. We ourselves are geographically distributed, but we were not all over the place. We're, I think, about 10 of us in total right now. But we work with a number of folks to broaden that reach. For instance, with cybersecurity, at NIST being a huge part of what we do, there's a cybersecurity framework, there's the risk management framework, there's a privacy workforce framework, there's frameworks around supply chain, there's things, research going on around AI cybersecurity and around manufacturing. So there's a number of places that we reach out to and tie through and engage with as well. But we're always also available to provide any support you need. And we work with a very large community of people. So that's through our community interest groups. We have a number of those, as well as through our working groups. And we have topic groups that are focused on specific projects as well.
We'll be waiting at our NICE office in Socorro, New Mexico.
I'll be there.
Again, I'll open it up to her. I think we have time for one more question if anybody wants to raise their hand or put it into the Q&A or chat. I don't see anything. So how about Steffie, we give you the last words.
Karen, thank you for presenting, and I'd like to thank all the participants for attending, and we look forward to seeing you again at our other webinars. And remember, New Mexico Small Business Development Centers offer free webinars and training. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for attending. Karen, you can stay on with us while everybody signs off, and we'll see you at our next webinar.
I look forward to it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, guys. Thank you.